Welcome to Beach Life Unlocked, episode number 6. My colleague Mike Dodson, myself Mitchell David. Today we're going to be discussing some pitfalls, some overlooked items that buyers and sellers typically do. So we'll move on to some common mistakes that buyers and sellers make. And Mike and I each have our own lists. I think some maybe overlap. We'll see. We're just going to kind of give some odds and ends information on it. So what's your couple that you might have for buyer mistakes?
I think not getting a home inspection is probably the biggest one for me, because you just never know what could be wrong in a property. Recently, I had a buyer who did get a home inspection.
Who did?
They did get a home inspection, but they waived their right to terminate the contract based on the home inspection, and the heat pump's not working. So that potentially could be a big expense coming their way. So that's
$8,500. $8,500. So home inspection runs about $399, $400, and that's going to be for an efficiency all the way up to a 3 or 4 bedroom condo. Mm-hmm. Obviously, single family homes are going to be in the fives a little bit, and then as you get bigger than that, like a big gigantic house that has 6 bedrooms, 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, you'll be in the 800s.
Yeah.
But again, I'm with Mike. I'll agree with you on that. And a lot of times, part of negotiations, a buyer might say to you, hey, how do I make my offer look better?
Yep. And
so one of the things that some buyers ask us is, hey, how about removing the home inspection? Mm-hmm. And my response always is,
don't do it.
I don't recommend it. However, this is your offer, not mine.
Right.
And my famous saying is, I will happily help you spend your money any way you want me to. So again, I'll give you my professional opinion, but I have to be with you on that one as well.
Yeah.
That's a doozy, or could be.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the pushback that we normally get on the home inspection is what? Well, it's only a condo, and what do we have? The water heater?
How much could really go wrong?
Right.
Yeah. Well, a water heater and an air handler, a heat pump, those are expensive items.
That they are.
So, one of those goes out, you could be, several $1,000s, off the jump.
Right, and a nice part with Maryland is in the inspection is that during the time frame and even after the inspection, as long as you're all within your time frames, if for some reason you just don't like the report, it's just unsatisfactory to you, you could terminate the contract.
Yep.
Right. We don't. The seller doesn't get the option to do the repairs.
Yeah, like they do in Delaware.
Exactly. So again, we're not saying that in all situations you have to have a home inspection, or you as a buyer who's bought numerous homes, maybe you're a contractor, maybe you have different types of friends and family who are in the business for the big items, and you're okay with that.
Yeah.
But in general, I would agree with Mike on that. One of the mistakes I think that buyers make is they don't realize the difference between a down payment and closing costs.
Closing costs, yeah. I've had that question several times. Well, I'm putting $10,000 down, that'll cover my closing costs, right? No.
Two separate things.
Two separate things. The down payment is based on your loan. Your closing costs are
based on the purchase price.
Based on the purchase price.
Right. And so, real quick, as Mike just said, so if you're putting 20% down, and we use easy math, and the property's $300,000, right? You're 60 grand, right? So, but that doesn't close your closing costs. Yeah. If it's financed, again, we'll use easy numbers. We'll say about 4%. So you'll have the 60 grand plus 4%, which is another 12 grand. So now you're at what? $72,000 to buy this property. And that does get lost quite often. Even on people who've bought properties, in the past, because this is primarily a vacation place, second homes, so they haven't maybe purchased a property in a long time.
It's been a while. Yeah. Just definitely keep that in mind, because no matter what you buy, you're financing, you're at least 4% that you're going to have to bring to settlement to close that transaction, regardless of your down payment.
Correct. And 4% is a number. I mean, it could be a little bit less than that, but does it? But if you make a cash offer and you're not financed, does the closing cost percentage change?
Yeah, because you're not going to have the lender fees, the appraisal fee, all that stuff that you would pay for a finance deal. So you're going to be about 3%.
Correct.
On a cash deal.
Right, and also you won't have escrows.
Right.
So that adds up as well. So escrows would be the money that the lender collects for property insurance, HO6 policy, and property taxes.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one that I seem to see a lot on that as well.
Yeah. One other thing that as far as buyers go, is I guess shooting for the stars, I would call it. Like, people want to look, everybody wants a really nice property, right? But if you can't afford a really nice property, let's not look at those. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you mean like it's over their budget?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, it's just not in the cards for them. You know, like, oh, I'd really like to have a 3-bedroom direct oceanfront. My budget's, $350. Well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to work.
You could be disappointed.
Yeah, we're gonna have to be more realistic. So I think it comes down to being realistic as a buyer. And I think that also goes for a seller as well, being realistic. Right? Is my property really worth what I'm asking?
Right.
Everybody thinks their property is the best, and they want to get top dollar, right? And that's our goal, is to get you top dollar as a listing agent. But if the market's not going to bear it, there's just no.
So do you recommend then your buyers get pre-approved?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, that might be the first step for a buyer, because then you have a realistic picture of what you can afford. Then you start your home search process, right? I've had a lot of buyers that they start their home search process. They think, oh, I got a 700 credit score. I can, I can afford anything. Well, your income may not support that, right? So,
right, it's all about ratios. I think, right? I mean, people forget that you might make a whole bunch of money, but you might also have a lot of debt.
Yeah.
So your ratio might be out of whack.
The saddest buyers I run into or work with are ones that don't realize how much debt they're really in, and when their lender tells them, well, you're 60% income debt. That's a big number. I mean, you're not even going to get
You're not going to get a loan.
Going to give you a loan,
right?
You're that high.
Yeah. So I'll tell you. So that's an interesting part. So I do it this way with pre-approval. So I don't require a pre-approval.
No, I don't require, but I think for a buyer, it's just
correct.
That way they go into the process knowing exactly what they can afford, what they should be looking at, and what's realistic for them.
Right, but after about the second or third showing, then I think it's really, if you haven't done it yet, again, some agents don't even show property unless you're already pre-approved, right? And that's their prerogative to do so. I've just have never found it to be worthwhile to have them go through the process and pulling the credit scores and giving all that stuff and getting dinged initially. So, but what I would say, and I agree with Mike though, if you are a serious buyer and you know where your number is, that's going to help you in your search.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, I have no problem people coming to town like, oh, we're just starting to look, we're thinking about buying something, we want to see if this makes sense for us. What can we get for, $400,000? What does that look like? Let's go, let's go take a look. I'll show you what you can get for $400,000, and if it fits what you're looking for, if it's your family's needs, then at that point, let's get that pre-approval and let's start seriously looking, right? If it's just not in the, I've had, buyers come one time, and they're like, it's just not going to work for us. It doesn't make sense for us right now, or, we really thought we could get more for this money. And then, we don't see them again for a while until it makes sense for them.
Until they get the numbers straight.
Yeah, right. Until the numbers match up and make sense.
Right. So when you first started your common mistake, I thought you were going to go like they were trying to pick the perfect property.
Yeah. Well, that's another. That kind of goes together.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't exist.
Right.
Unless you're well off and you can afford anything. And you have, obviously you could, unlimited money, you could find what you're looking for, right? It's out there, or can be built.
Correct, or it can be built.
Yeah.
And I think the common mistake a buyer makes is they overlook a property that would fit them perfectly well, being price point, location, size, all those things. But for one or two small reasons, they kind of overlook it. Again, we'll keep showing properties. It's fine with us either way, but also it becomes, there's a frustration part of this, right? Buying a home should be fun.
Yeah, right. And I think us as agents, we kind of get frustrated because we want to help them, try to guide them in the right direction. And if you receive a lot of pushback, it can be frustrating for us. Right? But for a buyer, especially, they're looking for that perfect property, and you're probably never going to find it. Right? It's going to frustrate you because why can't I find what I'm looking for?
Right. Exactly. Well, then you get frustrated with the agent. Yeah. Right, because then you don't think they're actually, kind of working for you, right? So that's okay. So that's a nice combination of pre-approval and have realistic expectations on what you're looking for, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then for me, I think a big one is not getting emotionally attached to a property. And here's why. Look, buying property is emotional in general, right? I mean, because that's part of this whole thing. And
it's a big decision.
It is a huge decision, and I'm a firm believer that when you walk into the property, you'll know when it's your property. But what happens sometimes too, though, is in that situation, sometimes they overlook items on a home inspection. They overlook maybe the building they're buying is, while the unit's perfect, maybe the building doesn't have the amenities that we had discussed before, but they fell in love with this, and then there's some buyer's regret.
Yeah, buyer's remorse is real. If somebody's looking for a property, say a condo in a building with a pool, but they find a property that fits everything but doesn't have a pool, and they're like, you know what, we're just going to buy this. I've had a lot of buyers be like, man, that pool is huge. We really shouldn't have settled. We should have made sure we had maybe given up a little bit on the condo itself, the unit itself, for the pool. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you. I think there's two items that are non-negotiable. If somebody tells me, typically an elevator and a pool. Yep. Because the condo
you don't realize how much you miss those items when you don't have them.
Exactly, and a condo building is not going to build a pool or put an elevator in after the fact. Right. Yeah. So again, this is a business decision. While as much as it's emotional, you should be able to walk away.
Yeah, I think it goes for all buyers and sellers. If the deal just doesn't make sense, it doesn't actually fit what you're looking for, you got to be able to cut the cord.
I agree, 100%.
Right. I mean, obviously, as agents, we don't want to lose a deal, but I also don't want a buyer to come back to me a year from now and go, we really made the wrong decision here. Yeah. I reached out to a buyer that purchased last year just to wish them happy, anniversary on their purchase, and the response back I got was, this is fantastic. We love the unit. All our friends come and they love it, and we get so many compliments, and that's the best thing.
It is.
Outside of recommending me to your friends, that's the best thing I can hear. That the person's happy with their purchase, because I don't want somebody to come back to me and look, I'm not happy with what I bought, where I made a bad decision here, and I'd rather people not buy rather than just to buy. Rather than to buy just to buy.
Just to buy.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I had a client who was really set on a certain building, and we just could not find anything in the building. And then the ones that we could find in the building, we made offers, but it wasn't the price point that kind of worked for them. So they started to get in the spot where they were going to settle, right? And that's a very
just take this one.
it's a very bad spot to be in, as a buyer's agent. So we actually had looked at a property. I wrote the offer for them. We had a conversation. I explained to them, hey, here's the difference of the two buildings. Are you going to see yourself happy here in 3 years? And if the answer is no, because really the other question you have to ask yourself is, a lot of people are driving 3 and 4 hours to the beach. Do you see yourself leaving the comforts of your home to come to the place that you're buying?
Yeah. Are you going to be chomping at the bit to get down here?
Correct. And to me, the buildings that they were looking at and about to settle on was completely different. I mean, the one building had a movie theater, indoor pool, outdoor pool, billiards.
Must be Sea-Watch.
It was Sea-Watch. Beautiful. And then they were going to go to a building that just had a pool, an outdoor pool, and that was it. But they wanted to be able to swim in the wintertime. They wanted one of their kids played sports and loves the gym, loves a fitness room. And so I, in good faith, I just said to them, you need to make a very difficult decision here on, do you wait or do you buy?
How important are these items really?
Exactly.
And if it's something that you're going to get a lot of use out of, actually checks a box on your list, like we really do want to use the pool, an indoor pool in the winter. Well, obviously you're not getting that over here with this building only having an outdoor pool. Let's focus here, right, and just forget that. Even if the unit's perfect, does it fit your lifestyle and what you're actually looking for?
Yeah, that's key. So you know, try not, while buying property is emotional, try not to get emotionally attached to the property if it doesn't meet the needs or it doesn't meet your price point. Like, don't go to your top limit where you become house poor on a vacation property that is extra.
Yeah, then all you do is worry, stress about making the payments.
Exactly. Any other ones?
So just for buyers in general, I can't really think. I mean, there's so many mistakes people make. You know, it's just.
Okay, well, I got one for you. I got one last one that I thought of is understanding costs. Right? So Mike and I talk about this to our clients all the time, and there's a couple nuances to Ocean City, like the HO6 policy that you have to have, the fixture fee, right? That people don't realize. And obviously we have real estate taxes, but in town limits you have town, county, state, right? Condo fee. If you buy in Sunset Island, you have an HOA fee on top of that, or Heron Harbor. So I think sometimes when you're having a conversation and they're like, it's all price, you need to think about those incidentals. Yeah. I mean, because, you know, we have clients, and I think we were laughing about a conversation we had the other day is, you know, remember, you still have a life outside of buying this property, and there might be some things that you want to do.
Yeah, I had a buyer tell me, I have 3 things that I like to do, and I'm not giving them up. When I buy, it's going to be something that actually fits my lifestyle, something I can afford, that I'm not going to have to stress over, and I can still do these 3 things. Brilliant. My hobbies outside of that. And I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Don't buy a property just to buy a property. I'm sure you had this. People are like, I just want a place at the beach. Yeah. That's great. Is it going to work for you? Does it make sense financially? Are you actually going to get use out of it? Right? Do you have time to come down and use it? And get that value out of it and enjoy it for yourself. If you have to work, an extra shift or whatever, get a second job to cover the payments on it. But when are you coming down to enjoy it? Now you're just paying on something you're not using.
Correct. Right. So I think this should be reiterated, and I know Mike does and I do all the time, but I'll do it again here, is you really need to see yourself leaving your home wherever it is coming here. Yeah. And if you don't see that, you don't envision that, it's like, yeah, possibly, or no, my house is way better. I have a pool here and this there, and I have that. And if I come to this one, well, then you're just settling. And at that point in time, I would rather you wait.
Yeah, wait till it makes sense.
Exactly.
And then you have time to come enjoy it. I know when my wife and we first purchased in Ocean City in 2018, the goal was to rent it. Right? It was going to be an investment property for myself. Turns out my wife had a lot more time free than I realized, and she was down here every weekend, right? So, she'd get off work on Fridays, and I'd come down when I could, but, she'd get off on Friday, and her and the kids would come down Friday night and stay here until Sunday afternoon as late as she could. So for us, it made sense because she was getting use out of it. Right. And then we ended up moving here full time in 2019, and
here you are now, 2025.
2025, haven't looked back.
so
honestly, the best decision we've ever made.
Well, look, I say this all the time. There's something about being at the beach all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It's. I don't live on the island. I drive from Berlin in, which is not too far out, to our office on 78th Street. Nothing better than coming across the Route 50 or 90 bridge in the morning time, sun's coming up. It just relaxes you in general.
Every time I come across the 90 bridge, if I have a kid in the car with me, I'm like, isn't that beautiful? Just coming into town, it's just awesome. I think they're tired of hearing that.
I'm sure they are. And they don't appreciate it, right?
I still do it every time.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to stop. It's the most important.
Well, great. So we appreciate your time as always. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the videos. Mike and I are always available. You can give us a ring. You can always message us through our Facebook pages. We have a lot of stuff going on our Facebook and our Instagram. So we have all kinds of, coming soon, sold. These videos are on there, little clips. So feel free to reach out to us, or you can visit our website.
BeachLifeOceanCity.com.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.